guys, welcome back to Beauty for You with Danielle, and today I'm going to talk about some tips and some tricks to a great sew-in, because I have been getting a lot of questions from my subscribers who ask me how to do a sew-in, how to make a sew-in last, and that type of questions. So I decided to do a video on some of the tips and tricks that I do that prolong my weave. So the first thing is you always want to start with fresh, clean hair. You always want to shampoo your hair and deep condition. I always like to do a deep conditioning protein treatment before every weave that I decide to do. So you never want to do a weave with dirty hair. Always make sure that you clean your hair. Also, you want to make sure that you moisturize your hair very well before you begin your sew-in. Always moisturize your hair. I like to moisturize my hair by putting oil on my scalp, any type of oil mixture that I have. I like to use, it just depends on what mood I'm in, so it really doesn't matter what type of oil that you use or any type of moisturizer, but you always want to moisturize your hair and your scalp, because you're going to have this sew-in for at least about 4 to 6 weeks. And next, you want to have a good braid pattern. That is the most important thing, is your braid pattern. What I like to do is I like to braid my hair with braiding hair, because that allows the braids to hold longer, last longer, and it also protects my natural hair as well. So the most important ones is around the edges. You want to make sure that you do not braid your hair around your edges too tight, because you don't want a lot of tension on your edges. You want to keep your edges, nice and full. And I actually don't leave out my edges when I do my sew-in, because I do a complete sew-in the majority of the time. But I like to leave no hair out around the sides at all. It just depends on the style. If I do happen to leave some of my edges out, I only leave out basically just a little bit, like maybe like the baby hair area. That's it. So you definitely want to have a good, strong foundation when it comes to a braid pattern. So it doesn't really matter how you braid your hair. It could be in a circle, it could be horizontal and vertical. Doesn't really matter, but as long as you have a good foundation as far as your braids. Okay guys, and the next thing that you want to do is you want to use a weaving net of some sort. You always want to use a weaving net, because that helps protect the braids, and it also allows you to sew where you have gaps in between your braids, so you're able to attach the hair and to keep sewing. The ones that I like to use is the one that comes like this. It just says weaving net, and it comes in a square like this. This is the one that I like to use the most, because it's very, very, very sturdy, as you can see. Very sturdy. You have to, it usually comes in a big square, but as you can see, I've used half of this, and it's just really durable. I prefer this net. It just says Deluxe Weaving Net. It doesn't really have a brand. I'm not sure exactly what brand this is, but you can find this at your local beauty supply store for like $1.99, or I think this might be $2.99. So you can use the one that has the band around it, but make sure you cut the band. Don't leave the band on. You want to cut the band around. So I'll use either or, and it's actually by the same company. And here's another one here, a picture of this one. I have used this one also. So definitely want to use a weaving net. Okay, and next you would always want to use the correct thread. You want to use weaving thread. Do not use regular sewing thread. You have to use weaving thread. It usually comes in two colors. You can get brown or you can get black. And make sure that you use the black thread is mostly used for if you're using a 1 or a 1B. If you're using that color hair, then you want to use the black thread. If you are using the colors number 2 and a number 4, then that is when you use the brown thread. So make sure that you use the correct thread for the correct color hair that you get. You also want to make sure that you have several needles threaded to make the process go a lot faster. I like to use the C-curve needle, and I also use the J. There's just a slight difference in the two, but you know, I like to use these two. I don't prefer like using the straight needles. I like to use this one. So always make sure that you have at least 10 needles threaded. I usually have about 8 to 10 needles threaded first, pre-threaded, so that I can keep on going. And at least with the 10 needles threaded, I can at least get half of my head done. Also, another tip would be to try not to sew through your braids. Try to sew under your braid. I like to go underneath the braid and over, underneath and over. And as I'm doing that, I also like to knot my weave, the thread. Make sure you knot the thread. If you don't knot the thread, then the thread is going to come loose and your weave is not going to last. You don't have to knot every single time, but you could do like every other loop. You want to make sure that you're knotting it. So I usually knot every other loop, or sometimes I'll do every loop. Okay guys, the next tip that I have for you is that you want to use good quality hair. That is very important as well. If you're doing a sew-in, you want to be able to have a good quality hair because you want something that is going to last. Now what I recommend is, that you use 100% human hair. Do not use a synthetic blend hair, which is human hair and synthetic hair mixed, because I feel like you'll be wasting your time. So you can use any type of beauty supply store hair, good quality hair. Beauty supply hair that I prefer is Outre. That is like my top of the list, the number 1 hair. Any Outre human hair, track hair that you can. I really recommend the Velvet Remy because I'm really in love with that hair. You can also use Sensational Premium Now. Their Goddess Remy hair is really good as well. And I haven't tried their Goddess Select, but I would recommend that also because I've heard a lot of good reviews on that. And you can also choose to use Milky Way because I like the Milky Way micro yaki hair. I think that hair is really good quality as well. As well as if you have any type of Brazilian or any type of you know, all the other type of hair, but you want to make sure that you choose a good quality brand of hair. Also, another tip is to also make your weaves last longer is you want to use the fold over method. Instead of cutting and measuring the tracks out, instead of doing that, because I think that just takes up so much time to cut each track and try to measure it. I would just sew and fold over and just keep going back and forth until you get all the way at least to the top of your head, like your temple area. Then that's when you can start to cut the tracks. It actually cuts down on the shedding and everything like that. So I would recommend doing that. Also guys, last but not least, is that if you're going to do a sew-in where you're going to have leave out, I would suggest to leave out the least amount of hair. The least amount of hair is better to blend, especially if you are a natural girl like myself. You don't want to put a lot of heat and a lot of stress on your hair on the leave out. And you only want to leave out just enough hair, as much as you need. Do not leave out like a whole big chunk of your hair. Only leave out as much as you need. So that's a really good tip. So guys, these are some of the tips that I do that I know that makes my weaves last. And usually my weaves last me anywhere between 6 to 8 weeks. During the time that I have my weave in, during that 6 to 8 week time, I probably will shampoo the hair maybe twice before I actually take it out and do it over again. So I hope that these tips were very, very helpful for those who had questions about how to make your weave last, and you know, how do you get it to prolong. So I really hope that these are some of the tips that I use that will be very encouraging to you, and I will see you guys in the next video.